Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. The Sixers literally just murdered, and I mean murdered, the Indiana Pacers. It wasn't even close, and I love the fact that this team responded to the coach's message. He publicly went out there after that Cleveland Cavaliers game and said, we couldn't do a thing offensively. We weren't able to get into any sort of sets. We couldn't operate anything that we wanted to. And then he said something weird, though. He said, well, it was more about the effort, not so much the execution. But the way that I read that, in the beginning, when you were going to blast your team about not being able to get into sets and run your offense, yes, I understand that the lack of effort was in play here, and they didn't give it their all against Cleveland. But that is execution, no? If you tell me you have 7, 8, 9, 10 plays that you want to see ran and you don't see it get ran and you can't go out there and be who you are supposed to be while effort comes into play, it's about execution. So I didn't understand that quote out of him. But realistically, that's irrelevant. What is relevant is the team listened to the coach and they bounced back and they put on this insane effort, and they really did take the bull by the horns and shoved it down the Indiana Pacers' throat. And it's not like it happened right from the jump. There was some ugliness involved early. It looked like Dougie McBuckets was playing at Creighton again. He was scoring at ease, and the Sixers' transition defense was a problem. I can't stand that is such a common theme this season. Their identity is supposed to be the wild, nuts, intense defense. And there are so many teams that easily blow by them in transition. Just something to keep your eyes on. If you want to think of a problem that can be long-term here, it's their transition D all season long to this point. And in the beginning of the game, Ben Simmons is creating all of these turnovers. And I'm not saying in a good way where he's locking down a defender and then it's transitioning into Sixers points. No, I'm talking about him giving the rock to the other team. And against Cleveland, he had 7 turnovers. Early in this game, he had 3, and I'm screaming at the damn television like, yo, dude, what are you doing? Because we saw this season, right when it began, 7 turnover performances, 6 turnover performances, 5 turnover performances. And that's too much. Ben Simmons has to be smarter with the basketball. And it's not ironic that when he was, okay, this team was able to go on a ride. And look, I'm not saying it's all because Ben Simmons just didn't turn the ball over anymore, but I feel like, hey, when your primary ball handler does a better job at keeping the rock in your team's possession, you're going to have a stronger push. And they really did. And it wasn't just Ben Simmons, like I said. Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz. As much as I can't stand Corky, all right, that second quarter definitely changed things. And they had 28 points together combined at the first half, or at halftime, I should say. After the first half, at halftime. And that second quarter was sensational. They outscored the Indiana Pacers 39-23. So it really came down to that. But the Pacers did not go away. They made this crazy push early in the third quarter, and luckily, here's Miles Turner, right? This guy's a stiff. You keep hearing about all these stats. Yeah, every time I see him play Joel Embiid, he's a shell of himself. He ended up going into the locker room at one point, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's a bitch. He doesn't want the smoke. He doesn't want anything to do with the big man in Joel Embiid. I swear to God. All the time. Oh, yeah, but Miles Turner, and oh, look how many shots he blocks. He does nothing when he plays the 76ers. And realistically, this Pacers team, they're a bunch of bums this season. I think we look at them differently because we have seen them over the last couple of years be a better version of themselves, but they are not it this year. They are very dysfunctional, and they can't get a rhythm. And even heard during the broadcast that they have this crazy stretch of road games because early in the season it was so heavy at home. Not a good spot for them to have to try and attack some of these road games. It might get miserable for them if it's not already miserable. Miles Turner, though, getting back to why I even brought him up. The Pacers came out in the third quarter and had a nice run. And here's Miles Turner, who's cutting to the basket nicely on this transition play. He's got no one within 10 feet of him, and he misses a layup. It was so brutal. Doc Rivers called timeout because he didn't like what he saw. Who knows what could have happened there if Miles Turner actually laid the basketball in? Who knows? That could have been a big turning point. That could have made that run more significant and could have allowed the Pacers to hang in there and believe that they had more of an opportunity. He also went for the good old classic Al Horford, miss a wide open easy shot, and start clapping your hands. He did the clap, and I think he did a couple. I think it ended up being like a 3-4 clapper involved after he was disgusted in himself. I haven't seen that in Philadelphia since the good old Al Horford misses, and I don't miss those at all. Quite frankly, I never want to see those again. Unless OKC comes to town and Al Horford does it. Then I'll have a good chuckle. Then I'll have a good laugh. Or even if it's Miles Turner, fine, whatever. As long as it's not Al Horford in a 76ers uniform, I am happy. After that timeout, though, by Doc Rivers, the Sixers just exploded. They really did. The last I kept up with it was a 15-0 run by the good squad, by the good guys. And I know, I think it even went something similar to a 20-5 run or something of that nature. But the last I stopped it at was 15-0 run. Some other plays that stood out to me during that nice stretch was Embiid had really good D on Sabonis, and here's Sabonis trying to look for a play. He tried to use his footwork 3 or 4 times, but Embiid wasn't biting. He stood his ground with his hands up, and Sabonis thought that there was someone out by the perimeter, so he made a bounce pass while his teammate cut to the corner, so it was a turnover, and then here's Joel Embiid on the other side, who just crushes a mid-range Jimmy in the face of a defender with ease. I thought that was like a really nice 2-play stretch there. McDermott loses his tooth. I thought there was a hockey game at the Wells Fargo Center. I thought the Fly Guys, I thought the orange and the black was on the ice when I see the teeth flying all around on the court. Oh, but geez, that's got to be brutal. I'm not going to lie, though. Growing up playing hockey my whole life, the amount of times I tied my 2 front teeth to a door and tried to shut it and slam it so I could look like Sean Couturier, if I had a nickel for every time I did that, I'd probably be able to pay the dentist to take my teeth out for me. I don't even know if that made sense. Speaking of Joel Embiid, though, there were some other moments out there that really were noticeable. Right at the end of the first half, there's about 20 seconds or so left in the quarter. He's out by the perimeter, and he's dribbling the basketball. Looks like he might drive. No. In rhythm. Beautifully looking. Great form. Drills a 3. What are you going to do? You anticipate him driving. Good luck. And entering the game, you heard Mark Zumoff claim it. Joel Embiid is shooting a career best out by the perimeter, out by the 3-point line. Over 40%. It's incredible what we're seeing out of Joel. And it's not as if he had a ton of time to log in an absurd amount of minutes to plug in a ton of points, but that's fine. Let's go with the good old-fashioned rest, because they play Utah before the All-Star game on Wednesday night, and that's going to be a big-time matchup. I want to see how this team plays against Utah. That's a team that is flying and clicking in all cylinders, jacking up an absurd amount of threes. But I also think it's big because Joel and Tobias were questionable heading into this matchup. I thought it would be foolish to throw Tobias Harris in there. This is a game that he could rest. There's no need. I don't see the big-time benefit of throwing Tobias Harris back into action so soon. If it were me making the decision, I would wait until after the All-Star break. But if he was questionable for tonight, I'd imagine there's a chance that he plays against Utah, and I know it's a big opponent and it would be a fun matchup, but I'm personally still holding him out. We'll see what the team elects to do, but Doc Rivers said that Joel Embiid was very questionable, as if, look, he's not going with the ankle, but he ended up playing. That's for damn sure he ended up playing, but he got a lot of rest, and I like the fact that he got a lot of rest not having to play the fourth quarter. Here's your starters. Your starter minutes. 25 for Mike Scott, and then I'll just run down the rest. 19 for Danny Green, 27 for Embiid, 28 for Ben Simmons, 23 for Seth Curry. That's outrageous, and that's a beautiful sight to see. Mike Scott, by the way, 4 steals, 4 for 4 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3. Are we getting a nice version of Mike Scott? And I think a nice version is the best way to describe it. I'm not saying anything wild. I'm not saying anything so absurd. I'm just saying a nice Mike Scott. Can we get a nice Mike Scott? And is he now becoming someone that maybe can play some stretch 4 minutes that you might have more faith in now that he's getting healthier? 4 steals, man. He's bringing it on the defensive end as well. That's what you love to see. You got to rely on this team to defend. And if they don't, it's going to be a long night. But I think it's funny because Sixers Twitter, which is hysterical to me, sees a win like this, and now everyone's back on the train, baby. Everyone's ready to see this team go to the NBA Finals. But after last game, they lost to the Cavs, and you were all pissed off, and you thought this team sucked, and you thought that this team needed 7 more moves to be made. Then they go out and beat a TJ McConnell-led Pacers team. I love that, by the way, as if he leads the team. I did see, though, him on Tyrese Maxey, and a beautiful spinorama move right around Tyrese Maxey and laid it up. No inbound steals, though. No classic TJ McConnell inbound steals, unless something happened late in the fourth where I was somewhat checked out because it was such an aggressive blowout where I wasn't dialed in dribble by dribble. Once it hit pretty much halfway through the fourth quarter, it was more background noise, and I was getting things ready for the show. But yeah, the TJ McConnell thing. Then he tries to wrap up Ben Simmons on a hard foul, and you saw Ben Simmons somewhat whisper something into his ear, and TJ McConnell laughs a bit. TJ McConnell. All right, let's get to Shake Milton. 9 of 14 with 26 points. We haven't seen Shake Milton put on that type of performance in forever. That was solid. And when he's able to do it in so many different areas on the floor, he's constantly utilizing penetration, and then he's able to he's got like not an unorthodox looking shot, but the way his feet are in midair, and it's like he's guiding his shot with his legs and his arms as he does it. I don't know if unorthodox is the right way to explain, but you guys all know what I'm talking about. When you watch Shake Milton deliver the ball towards the net as he is penetrating and dribble driving, he does that little thing with his legs as he's shooting. He's getting there efficiently, and he's drilling shots from behind the arc as well. That was really solid, and I just wonder, are we going to now see a stretch of Shake Milton? Is this going to be a nice little how do you do out of Shake? The problem is there's only one more game until break, and who knows what you can expect after break because there's such a long period of time until the next game that sometimes guys that have flow come back a little cold, come back with a little bit of a softer streak. Or it can go the other way around. There could be struggling players like Mike Scott who might come back from break with a new mentality and with a new sense of urgency where they start to deliver and become a better version of themselves. So it absolutely can go both ways, but I'm trying to think of some optimism here for Shake Milton because he has had a bunch of clunkers and he's had some poor games, and I know some chalk that up to, well, you got to remember, he came back from injury, and yes, I'm fully aware that he was battling some injuries and there were some lingering issues occurring, but I also look at it from a perspective of this is who Shake Milton is right now. He's a younger guard in this league who's learning on the job. And Allah said something that somewhat ticked me off a bit during the broadcast because he was trying to look for an excuse for Shake Milton. You know, it's tough being a bench guy. You don't know what type of minutes you're going to get. And some nights there's foul trouble, so you're playing more minutes. Some nights you might not get a lot of minutes because the starters play. Here's why I have a problem with that statement. And look, I'm not saying it applies to every bench player. Every bench player is different. But for Shake Milton, this is why it doesn't make sense to me what you said. He knew coming into the season that he was going to be the sixth man. Everybody had an idea on what Shake Milton would be. Everyone is fully aware of the amount of minutes-ish that he's going to log in every night. He is your secondary guy with the ball in his hands. So Shake Milton, he knows his role. He knows what he's going to get. He knows what his job is. He's the secondary ball handler on this team and the sixth man. So Shake knows that. This isn't a Tyrese Maxey. If you said that to Tyrese Maxey, I would 100% be on board. Why? Well, because the guy can get 16 minutes one night, 7 the next. 21 night, 4 the next. 18 one night, DNP the next game. I can totally get behind that type of discussion for a Tyrese Maxey. For Shake Milton, we know what he's supposed to do, and he knows what he's supposed to do. So from that angle, I'm sorry, Allah, I have to disagree with you. 15 of 35 from 3. While I'm very impressed with the 15 side of things, knocking down 15, that's incredible. I like the 35. This team needs to take more threes. This team needs to realize that if they're going to want to seriously compete, you're going to have to let it fly more. So I want to see this team get up there in the three-point number game. They're not shooting nearly enough to be successful. Now you're starting to see that number rise. Why? Well, because Joel Embiid is starting to get double-teamed more, and teams are totally keyword trying, to take him away, and they want the ball out of his hands. Well, when that happens, Furkan's going to be open. Matisse Thybulle is going to be open. Shake Milton's going to be open. Seth Curry's going to be open. And when you have guys hanging outside, you're going to have those looks. So I do sense that these three-point shooting numbers are going up in quantity because, well, let's not have Joel Embiid beat us on this given night. They didn't bring it as heavy and as hefty as, let's say, Toronto or some of the other teams that might bring the intensity. And that's what allowed Joel Embiid to get a couple more of the Joel Embiid buckets that we've seen. There was like a parting sea. Nobody wanted to get in the middle of the lane when Joel takes it from the perimeter all the way to the rack. No one even dared stepping in. No one even wanted to try and attempt to get a charge. I would have. Oh, there's no doubt in my mind I would have had both of my feet set, perfectly executed charge to see the ref go the other way and blow the whistle. But no one on the Pacers wanted to do it. Shame on them. They're soft. That's right. They're soft. We'll see what this means moving forward, though, with the attempts from 3. Also, 56.8% from the floor. Furkan Korkmaz with 19. I'm sure all you Furkan Korkmaz lovers just had such a grand time watching him explode like that. Speaking of exploding, listen to this deal by my friends over at DraftKings. UFC 259 is this weekend and is sure to be action-packed with 3 title fights taking place in one night. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, is putting you in the center of this weekend's title fight with 100-1 odds on either fighter to land a punch during the title fight. Pick either main event fighter to land a punch during this weekend's UFC 259 bout, and DraftKings Sportsbook will give you 100-1 odds. Just bet $1 on either fighter to land a punch, and if that happens, you will cash $100. That is literally insane. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code BRODES when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 if either main event fighter lands a punch on Saturday. Place your bet and watch the fist fly this weekend. That's code BRODES to turn $1 into $100 if either fighter lands a punch. For a limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's throw it on over to the Anytime Hotline. There's been a lot of people asking me, hey, Brodes, how do I call in? Well, it is very simple. The phone number is 856-442-9805. That's 856-442-9805. You can call at any point of the day. It is always available, and you can leave your reaction specifically right after a Sixers, Flyers, Phillies, Eagles game. And I just pick them, man. I just go in there, and I pick some calls, and boom, here we go. And with that being said, let's kind of start us off here.
Bro, what up, man? Good win by the Sixers tonight. You know, I'm sitting here. We right now currently in the fourth quarter. 4:30 left. I think they should pull it out, man. If not, then man, I guess I shouldn't be claiming victories just thus far. But Ala Abdul Nabi is killing me, man. With this Furkan, like every time Furkan does something, it's like, yo, I cannot stand Furkan. I'm like you, I can't stand Furkan, man. Like I know these guys are NBA players for a reason, but Furkan Korkmaz to me is like the worst. Like, he's the worst of the bunch, man. Like, it just don't get no worse than Furkan, man. I mean, he does show up and have good games at times, but dude, like, Ala Abdul Nabi need to really stop with this praise that he get his dude. Like, good win, man. Hopefully I don't jinx it, but.
You didn't jinx it. And I'll be honest with you, that threw me off. Because I didn't expect the first caller to just rip Furkan Korkmaz like I want to do. Normally, after these type of performances, it's all the Furkan love and all the lovers that say, see, Brodes, see, this is why you don't hate Furkan. And I'm like, why? The guy's a, quote, three-point specialist, and heading into this game, he's shooting 31% from three, which is garbage and significantly worse than league average. Last year, as much as I couldn't stand him, the guy would at least pop in 40% from three. My only issues with him last year was defense. He was actually delivering at a decent rate for me offensively, to the point where I couldn't really knock him last year. But to this point, you've only had maybe one or two of these Furkan type of nights, and ironically enough, I think they were even talking about, it was against the Indiana Pacers with that epic comeback they had earlier in the season. So it's kind of weird that it's up against this matchup, and you would think that the Indiana Pacers would recognize that. But I'm with you. There is this feel by the broadcast team that, Furkan Korkmaz gets a lot of hate, and a lot of people despise him, and a lot of people rip him apart, and I don't expect them to be harsh on these players. But I do think they take it to an extreme of, oh, look at that play by Korkmaz. Yeah, all right, we get it. You're really starting to drag this out a bit because you want everyone to recognize, oh, look, Furkan actually made a nice play. I remember he made a nice pass. He made a nice pass to, I believe it was a Mike Scott 3. But regardless, it doesn't really matter who it was to. And then on the other end, he got blown by within a half a second. Literally a half a second for an easy two. And nobody's going to mention the fact that he just got obliterated and abused in that moment, but you're going to love that assist. But you're not even going to touch on how putrid of a defensive possession that was and how these guys are licking their chops every time he's out there defensively. It's just crazy to me. But look, tonight's not the night to do this. We'll do this another night, I promise. And if the next call is about Furkan, I'll laugh and probably react to that as well. But I'm pretty consistent on this. When there's nights where a guy has a good night, tonight's not the night for it. Tonight is not the night to just rip apart Furkan. There will be about 15 of those upcoming, though.
This was a very nice win. I'll give them credit. This just proves that when they want to, they can come out and perform. It's just about getting that one, too. I think this team still kind of has an issue with effort sometimes, and I wonder how that's going to translate in the playoffs. But it was really nice to see some guys have bounced back games. Furkan, your guy, Furkan Korkmaz played well. Shake Milton played well, something he hasn't done previously. And Mike Scott, I thought, did a lot of, nitty-gritty stuff. Embiid had he had an Embiid game. And so much for Miles Turner being the defensive player of the year. Looks like he's going to be out for the season with those two broken ankles.
Oh, how about that, baby? That's a good one. That's good work out of you. The thing with the effort, though, you mentioned that this team might have an effort problem. And this is where I always go back to this conversation that I know a lot of people might not like, but you said, will this translate to playoffs? There's no way that a lack of effort shows up in playoffs. Now, it might, and that would be an outlier because there's a lot of playoff games and all, but you get up for that. The reason why there's a lack of effort is because it's a random Wednesday night, game 22 of a 72-game season. You're on the road. You're at home. You have a 4-game home stretch. The reason there's a lack of effort is because there's so many regular season games. You're playing against an opponent that stinks, and they think that they can walk all over them. But in the playoffs, I can't imagine Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons just thinking, hey, you know what we're going to do now? We're just going to walk all over the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals. We're just going to walk all over Milwaukee in the second round. We're just going to walk all over any team in the second round. And if they do, well then, yeah, I'll agree with you. Then I would say that I didn't see that coming. But where I see the lack of effort and the random losses that piss people off so much, I think that's a product of regular season NBA basketball. Once again, I'm not saying it's impossible to have a stinker in a playoff series. Like in a 6-game series, if they end up coming out on top 4-2 and one of those losses was a stinker because maybe they didn't have it that night, that will happen. That's just reality in sports, right? If you could make sure that doesn't happen ever, well, then it would never happen. It's just a reality of human nature. But I do feel like that is more of a product of, we're playing the Cavs. They stink. We have so much better talent than them, and that's the mindset. But you don't play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second, third round of the playoffs, and that's where I see it a little bit differently. But they did seem to be locked in, and I think a lot of that had to do with the statement the coach made after last game about how upset he was with what happened against the Cavs team. You know, they just were not ready. They weren't able to get into any sort of sets, and they weren't able to be who they are supposed to be, and that didn't sit well with the coach, and then the message was heard from the players, and that's what you want.
That's what we fucking do, Brodes. We go in, beat that team. Indiana's not a great team. People are acting like they have a chance at the top of the East. They're not that good. Joel Embiid, another solid effort. Only 24 points. That's all I needed. Ben Simmons looked great. Shake Milton looked great. He has his best game in a while. Even Furkan. I'll even give Furkan credit because I'm in such a good mood after watching that game. No Tobias Harris either. So just a great win, especially coming off that last one. I feel like Doc really had the guys motivated, calling them out, saying that they were lazy in the last game. So you just love to see it. Great effort, great win. So
that's exactly what it was. Motivated. They were motivated to go out there and obliterate their opponent. And that's why I think the word murdered is perfect. They absolutely murdered the Pacers team. And as stated in the beginning of this podcast, it didn't happen right from the jump. There was some sloppiness involved, whether it was Ben Simmons and the turnovers or the transition D, and I really want people to focus on that. I want that to be a stressed point. Make sure your eyes are glued to the transition defense because we talk about, okay, what translates to postseason, what doesn't translate to postseason. There's something going on with this transition defense side of things. And I know the game isn't as fast and it's not as quick and it's not as up and down when the postseason comes around, so that might actually benefit this team because there's less time for that to happen. But there's a postseason version of transition points, and I'm just curious, is there going to be a correlation? And it's wild because this team is so predicated on that. Just defense in general. Lock down. You know, bring your full effort on that side of the floor, and that will naturally let your offense explode on the other end. Let your defense create your offense. And they know that. They're fully aware of that because you hear Ben Simmons talk about the defense. You hear Mike Scott after a 4-steal performance talk about it. Tobias Harris, this is arguably the best defense you've seen out of his entire career. I don't think we need to even discuss what Joel Embiid does from a rim protection standpoint. And not even just a rim protector. You know, the fact that you can have this guy out by the perimeter at times too, it's a scary weapon to have. Matisse Thybulle, everyone knows what this team is built around. Danny Green. So how come you're so lazy in that area? It really is a little bonkers to me.
Hey, Brodes, I just want to stop by and ask a question. Do you think bench pieces like Furkan Korkmaz and Mike Scott can stay consistent like they did tonight and like put up a good amount of points off the bench? Well, Mike Scott was starting tonight, but you know, usually when Toby's in the lineup, he'll come off the bench. Or do you believe like we need to get someone to help our bench out, and who do you believe we should get or should try and get?
That's a great question. I do not think they're going to be reliable. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they're going to be reliable. And bench players, for the most part, there are some that are reliable, but they're bench players for a reason because they're not very consistent. If Furkan Korkmaz was this type of guy every single night, he'd be a starting player. He would be an unbelievable three-point shooter. He would be fantastic. He's not this, and that's why he is a role player, even though he should be even worse of a role player. My point is, you know, when these bench pieces have these type of nights, there are some that constantly can get a bucket. Alou will. You know, the six-man role. Some teams have a six-man role, which that one individual is a guy that you can rely on. But when you start talking about 7, 8, 9, those type of players off your bench, they're not consistent players. And that's why they're 7, 8, 9, 10 men off your bench. That's why they're in that range of players. Do I think that they're going to be reliable? I don't. I really don't. And I don't know if there's enough moves that you can make. Because even if you do go out and get a player, right? And Kyle Lowry's the hottest name, I would make that move. But I'd have to make sure that bringing him back once the contract expires is in play. If I'm getting rid of Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle, Ferguson, Poirier, if I'm giving up 6 players for Kyle Lowry, which you have to do, people need to understand this. It's going to take a significant amount of people because you have to max the contract. So if you're going to give up Danny Green, Mike Scott, Poirier, Shake Milton, picks, whatever the case may be, all of that, for a half of a season with Kyle Lowry, and you enter him in the lineup, you get rid of Danny Green, you no longer have Mike Scott, you no longer have Shake Milton. I'm sorry, you're like, I don't know if that's enough. So signing him again is going to be crucial on my list if you do go out and get a Kyle Lowry. With that being said, if you go out and get a George Hill and a PJ Tucker type, they're role players that I feel more reliable on. Like, I feel like they're veteran, experienced players that I could rely on more than Mike Scott's a veteran, but he's just not there anymore. Injuries have played such a big role on who he is. And Furkan, I'll never truly rely on him ever. So he's out of the question. So to answer your great question, you got to go out and grab more. You got to go out and get more, for sure. No doubt about it, to answer your question. But thank you so much for the phone call. That is a great call.
Yo, bros, what's going on? Shake Milton, hell of a performance, coming out there, balling out. Joel got what he needed to do. Had a great little game that he put together. Not his best, but not his worst. Looking forward to seeing them kick the Jazz's ass on Wednesday. Let's get Sixers.
Ooh, kick the ass of Utah, huh? That would be nice. And look, they're playing with some confidence after this win, so maybe that transitions into what they do against that Utah team. It's funny the way that you look at Joel Embiid's night, though, right? Because he logged in, 27 minutes? So we're used to him playing maybe 34 in that range and giving you 35 points. It doesn't feel as powerful because he didn't play as many minutes. And I'm not going to act as if when he was out there, he was this dominant force to the rate of a 40-point performance, because it wasn't that. But my man still had like a very solid night. But now 24 points in 27 minutes to us, based off of where he is and how our expectations have changed so much. Now all of a sudden a night like this is, not his best, not his worst. Because he's done so much and he's so lethal and he's been so crazily good that a 24-point performance in 27 minutes is, That's great, though. That's not a bad position to be in. You know what else is not a bad position to be in? Working with Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, Orbit Energy and Power is home to your solar experts in residential and commercial projects. They are dedicated to making sure that your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Their solar program eliminates your electric bill completely by offering flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. There's no risk and no need for investment. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, tree removals, electrical upgrades, new roofs, and so much more. Check out their information. It is all down below. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode, and I will see you guys next time. I was going to say we will see you next time. There's only me. It's only one person here. It's a one-man show. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.